Welcome to Stay Sharp in Digital Engineering, your insider's edge on all things digital in the world of engineering, products, and manufacturing. In this episode, Jonathan Scott and I sit down with Michael Craffey and Kip Speck to recap COExperience in Reno, a PLM event hosted by CO and Dassault Systèmes. We share the latest advancements on Dassault's 3DExperience platform, AI and AR innovations, and some key community collaborations. We also explore CO's future and volunteer needs as the organization evolves. Let's dive in. Welcome back, everybody, to Stay Sharp, the podcast about all things digital, from products to engineering and manufacturing and beyond. I'm one of your hosts, Julianne Grant, and I'm here today with my co-host, Jonathan Scott.
Hello, everybody.
Always good to be here with you, Jonathan. And today we're recapping another industry event that we had recently in the industry called COExperience, which was held in Reno, Nevada last week. CO stands for Community of Experts and originally represented the user community of CATIA many moons ago. And I know one of our guests knows the name of that. I forget it was Operator Experts or something like that. And it's still a very strong user community for the 3DExperience user base. And it's run by a team of volunteers, which is really interesting, who develop the content, select the speakers, and organize the annual event. So we want to talk a little bit about what happened last week, as it is one of the larger PLM events in our industry. And the other thing, it was co-located with a different event called MBSE Cyber Experience, which is the user base for CATIA Magic, or the product that many people know as Cameo. So, and to help us today share what happened last week, is we have two guests from Razorleaf who are on a 3DExperience team. We have Michael Craffey. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Julianne.
Hey. And Kip Speck. And many of you might know Kip from running our 3DExperience, Unpacking 3DExperience webinar series. So we're glad to have you both. I know we are all at the booth last week in Reno. So just a quick background on Mike. Mike has more than 30 years experience helping manufacturing companies implement new technology. He's been with Razorleaf almost 19 years and is focused on our Dassault business and the 3DExperience infrastructure. And Kip has more than 15 years experience in PLM and PDM and mainly focuses on the Dassault PDM and PLM services and applications, and is our pre-sales architect for Razorleaf. So he also founded a reseller and worked for another reseller, but this is his second round at Razorleaf. So we're glad he's back with us. He has a great amount of expertise to share. So with that, let's jump into our event discussion.
I'm ready to jump right in, Julianne.
Please, yeah.
Yeah. So, because I was the one who was not at the booth. You three were, but I wasn't there this year. And this is, I love CO, right? CO, I've been going to CO for, trying to remember my first one, but I didn't go this year, went last year. Sorry I missed it, but I want to jump in and hear, what did you guys learn, right? So I've got questions, but let's just start with the platform. I don't know whether to start with Kip or Mike. Maybe start with you, Mike. What did you hear about the platform? What's new with 3DExperience or other things Dassault related?
Yeah, so by the way, Julianne, the CO originally was the CATIA Operators Exchange, is what it stood for. So it's sort of morphed into that now. So the as far as what we saw, what we heard, I think Kip has some exciting things to talk about in a little bit. But one of the things that we saw was some incredible AR sessions. It was a general session, and they had 4 guys from the R&D group, and they actually did a live AR right on the stage. And we could see it. We could see what he was seeing. And they had really good demonstration of the mannequin and all of the improvements that have been made, the way it can grab the wheel and its lifelike movements, and it's, even the apparel that they're wearing was pretty incredible. So I'd say, what I'm seeing more and more of is this overlap of human experience with the technology is becoming, sort of more and more commonplace.
Was that stuff all like 𝙇𝙀𝘼𝙍𝙍, Mike, or was it other brand stuff too?
A lot of it was CATIA, a lot of it was 𝙇𝙀𝘼𝘍. Yeah. The rendering is probably, 3DExcite.
Right. right? Yeah, putting all the brands together. Okay. Kip, how about you? What did you see new to the platform, new and interesting stuff coming out with 3DX?
Well, one of the things that to me, it's not necessarily new. It's been around or been talked about for many years, but it appears that DS is actually going to have the FedRAMP or the US Gov option on the DS private cloud, but it looks like it's actually going to be available very soon. So if you're an ITAR customer or things like that want a DS platform, so you're not doing it, not having to host it yourself, it looks like it's coming in 2025. Obviously, I'm not the official announcer for DS.
Right.
They talk about it, and they said it was 2025. And the thing is it's still on the AWS platform, but it is completely managed and operated by DS employees, DS personnel, US personnel at that. So for me, that's great because I've been hearing about it for at least 10 years now. So for it to actually come about is pretty good.
Cool.
One of the other areas that, the predictive or the AI in CATIA or on the platform, it's getting more and more visibility or more presence in the platform. And one of the things that they talk about are predictive commands. It's able to, like if I insert a part into an assembly, it knows where the constraints are, right? So it helps you in your design and engineering functions. And, when I first think about AI taking over design, it's going to push out an engineer, right? Well, it's not that. It's doing commands that you would have to do anyway, but it speeds it up. It understands that these are the commands you would normally do, and it does it for you, right? So it already understands that these two surfaces mate together this way, those kind of things, right?
That's a cool use case, right? I mean, and something that a lot of people ask about, like, where's AI going to fit? Like, all right, that's a logical one, sort of predictive. Oh, you always do this when you do this. Okay, here's what I think you're going to do. That's cool.
Yeah, and if it's got two objects have one's got a dowel pin and one's got a hole, and it knows, hey, the dowel goes in the hole, right? Kind of thing. And the smart fasteners and those have been enhanced quite a bit as well. So the AI portion of it is becoming more available in the platform. And the other thing about that is that excuse me. So it's really stressed a lot that they want to protect your IP. So just because you're using AI in the platform doesn't mean the information is getting shared to everybody else. It is your IP is going to stay that way.
That's a pretty important topic, right? That's we hear that come up a lot when we talk about AI.
Yeah. The other one, and I noted in here, I'm not sure if it's just kind of a rebranding of a couple apps that were already there, but Dassault has really pushed out that CATIA as a service, meaning that it's going to be web enabled. So I can run CATIA on any device anywhere, right? So when you think about CATIA, I always think of this huge monster software that it's going to take some massive machine to run, right? But they're actually using it or promoting it to be able to be used on the web, on any device anywhere, right? So it's and I think about that as the previous apps, excuse me, XDesign and XShape. So I don't know if it's kind of rebranding those to be more CATIA, but the demonstrations I saw, it says CATIA on it, and it looks very nice.
That's pretty interesting. That reminds me, and this is, tough to go cross competitors in a podcast talking about code, but like Onshape style, right? That's what we're talking about, like CAD in a browser. That's cool. That's really good to have the power of CATIA like that. That's really neat. What else? Anything else? I mean, here's the one I got to ask about. The new thing, like 3DExperience. Everybody's like, what does that mean? Universe? I don't even know if you pronounce the universes.
Yeah, they put a plus in there, right?
Okay.
So, so they kind of played with the name a little bit. The show's good for these like power by and all this other stuff. The universe is, the generation 7, right? So when you think about the different stages or how DS has evolved, we're in their 7th phase of rolling out the platform, right? So that's kind of where we are. Think about industry solutions and industry processes. And me have been in a reseller, those aren't new. It's a collection of apps and processes put together for like industrial equipment or automotive. It's a whole suite of roles and processes that they put together to say, here's an industry process, things that are typical business processes and use cases for your industry, right? So I think they've been building these for a number of years. I think we'll start seeing more of that being pushed out into the customer base, right? Becoming more, if you want to design a battery, here's all the apps and things like that you need to design batteries in the automotive space, right? So those industry solutions and industry processes, I think we'll start seeing more of those as packages that Dassault will offer.
Interesting. That gives me a little insight into what the universes are about at this point.
Yeah, and I always find that Dassault's always been really strong, right, on vision. So they've been really strong on setting that big picture vision of what the capabilities are. And I just hope that they do a good job or move towards simplifying the message of what people are going to actually buy. So, I mean, the universes sounds great. And I like how you explained it, Kip, about, creating applications very specific in a set of apps and capabilities that someone who's designing a battery could use fairly easily. But when it kind of gets down to the nitty gritty, it gets a little complicated.
Speaking of nitty gritty, or speaking of something Kip brought up already, you mentioned AI. I want to go back to that topic for a minute. Anything else? Maybe Mike, did you see anything AI related or other stuff? Because what Kip brought was really interesting. But were they talking about more AI stuff?
They sure did. It seemed to be, sort of a common theme through the whole conference. There was AI everywhere. There were more AI topics in the sessions than I've ever seen. One that I attended, though, that was very interesting to me was which I'm not a simulation guy, but I like watching simulation presentations. Usually they could be like boring or they're so far over my head. Even as an engineer, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I know the feeling, right? I see like the electrostatic ones and I'm like, okay, all right, sure.
That's right. Yeah. Just an electromagnetic thing, I don't know what you're talking about. But, they had the simulation presentation where they were talking about AI surrogates. And the whole reason I went to this, because AI surrogates was in the title. And I'm like, what is this? I got to go find out what this is. And so imagine, I'm a professional simulation guy. My hourly rate's really high. I have to have this incredible, compute power. So everything I do computational wise is very expensive. And so I can build these models that I can verify and do all this other stuff too. And then I can build an AI surrogate from that model. And that AI surrogate can be used downstream by engineers and everybody else. So it's a low cost approximation of that high cost simulation. And they were talking about these AI surrogates having, they're getting 90+% accuracy to the model, to the original model. And they're running in minutes instead of hours. And it's a pretty incredible improvement in functionality. And the other thing that I thought was interesting was you create these training and there's sort of like feedback loops for the model. So every time the AI surrogate runs, you can create a loop back to the model for improvements. And one of the things that they talked about was you have to be very careful about that, because if you build in some sort of bias into the feedback loop, you could be making the model less and less accurate. So they're very aware of this, and they have these other tools that can check the bias and things like that. I was like, man, who would ever thought that they were going to come this far in these simulation tools? But hey, here we are.
Well, and that fast too, right? I mean, this AI topic's exploded in the past year, and then like suddenly, oh, look what they're doing with it. That's cool.
And not only that, I mean, the first day I was at COE, we have COE meetings, and HP came in and was talking about their new hardware, and this hardware is just these little teeny boxes with they're talking about hundreds and thousands of cores and all kinds of RAM and GPUs and things of that nature. And a lot of it was targeted at AI.
And Mike, when you talk about that, it brought up something that I thought about in the automotive industry. they have to run crash tests, right? So in a lot of those crash tests are simulated. So in those feedback loops, if you run a crash one time, it learns what happened, right? So if you adjust the 3D modeling to compensate for failures or whatever else, that also means that now it can learn that, okay, well, I ran these tests, these things didn't change. Let me focus on what actually changed, right? So now your simulation of these types of models or these tests and things like that, it speeds that up and takes, every time you do it, you get better at it, right? So now if AI learns from that and I go design another vehicle on the same platform and I reuse a lot of that simulation in the other one to say, okay, I've already done most of this stuff. I already know the results of this, and makes it faster and easier and cheaper to do some of those things. I think that's where things start heading when you talk about simulation and AI. It's going to be really neat to see all that.
Yeah, well, you bring up a really interesting use case there, Kip, and I think that that makes me think about what were some of the customer stories or presentations that you heard that were interesting. I know we had a lot of interesting conversations at the booth. People had many different concerns and scenarios that they were discussing. But anything come to mind, Kip, for you when you were at the show?
Yeah, in one of the general sessions, Bell Flight, and I think maybe one of the ones that Mike went to as well, but they talked about how they worked with Virgin Galactic in the design of the aircraft. So Bell Flight said, we will design what they call the feather, which is the wing on their spacecraft, right? So you think about Bell Flight, it's a huge company, their designers, and they have all their tools and everything else. And Virgin Galactic is a big company as well, and they have their tools, right? So how they collaborated using the 3DExperience platform to say, here's our design, you focus on the feather or the wing, we're going to work on the fuselage, right? So, that supplier or, collaborative relationship between the two of them had to be very tight, right? So they had talked about how they utilized the 3DExperience platform to be able to collaborate in the designs. And I don't know all the details, but they even talked about they used a hybrid on-premise, on-cloud approach to where they could exchange data, information, things like that easily without it being a pure on-premise type thing. So they were able to do those designs and collaborate in a better way than what they've ever done in the past. So I thought that was a very interesting use case for them, for two very large companies with very complex designs and engineering to collaborate on that. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, that I enjoyed that presentation, quite a bit. Virgin Galactic. The whole theme of space flight for all. Two things that I thought was interesting was they have a unique challenge where they have to design a vehicle that can take off, go into outer space, survive reentry, and land. So think space shuttle, but the space shuttle that's all it is, and it goes from the ground up into space and then comes back and gets used over and over again. And the other thing I thought was interesting was their use of 𝙈𝙊𝙍𝙬 and how important that is to them. So you think about using this thing over and over again, right? So you don't just have an MES problem, but you have an MRO problem. And so they're using 𝙈𝙊𝙍 all the way down to the operations. And so that's the first presentation I've seen where you saw 3DExperience all the way out to the operations through the 𝙈𝙊𝙍 integration.
I imagine that was a pretty cool, sort of presentation demonstration of like full platform, right? Start to finish and reuse and back to start, right? That's cool. All right, so I'm going to switch and I want to ask about the organization itself, right? I'm always interested in COE and how COE is doing. So what's the update there from either of you? Mike, I know you volunteer, so what insight do you have about how COE is doing?
Well, we got new shirts, so nice. That's good. It's about time. We needed new shirts, and one of the sponsors actually provide the shirts. Probably the biggest news is Chaz Marsh, who was the president or is the president, being replaced or has stepped down, and Mark Jeeves is stepping up. And
cool.
Mark works.
Yeah, Mark will do a great job at that.
Yeah, he's a good guy. And he works at True North PLM. He started his own thing. I've been a volunteer for, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years. And one of the things that we're having a problem with is we don't have enough volunteers, just not enough people volunteering. There seems to be, maybe some mystery about like, oh, it's going to take a lot of work or whatever. But if you're just a chair in a division like I am, it's not a heavy lift. It's a couple hours. That they do want you to come to CO and volunteer and moderate and help, right? And so, you're there a little bit earlier and you stay a little extra, but we usually have events together to build, that camaraderie and everything like that. So the getting additional volunteers is a big push. The other thing that they want to do is they want to revive. I don't know about you, Kip, but I know, Jonathan, you remember the CO forum. It used to be a big thing. Everybody participated in it, and it kind of went away. I think they changed their platform, and so they didn't have anything. And so they got together with Dassault. Dassault stepped up to the plate, provided 4,500 IFW licenses. And so if you're a CO member, if you have an email address, you're going to get an invite.
I just got my invite, actually.
There you go.
I was going to say, I got mine. I actually logged in and got onto the community forum.
Awesome.
So there's not a lot there yet, but I look forward to a lot of great conversations, and I like it being on the 3DX platform because I'm involved in Innovia and all kinds of other forums on that same community area. So I'm anxious to see everything that happens there. So
nice. Right. So, Mike, how can people get involved if they want to help?
That's a good question. So, you can go right to the CO. You can go to the code.org website and type in volunteer, and you'll find it. Or you can just send an email to co@co.org, and someone will get back to you right away. They monitor that pretty regularly.
Okay, great.
Cool. Well, we should probably leave it there, guys. That was good sort of insight into the event. I can't say I felt exactly like I was there because I do miss it. But
and we missed you.
Yeah, it's a bummer not to be there.
You were asked about several times. So.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Did you? Was that the 10 great tools? 10 cool tools. Somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, is Jonathan going to be here doing 10 cool tools?" I'm like, "Nope."
See that? You're a legend, Jonathan.
I should go back to that. That was a lot of fun doing that. Like I did that a couple of years. Boy, that's been a while. But anyway, so I'm just going to recap what I heard for our listeners. I think you guys mentioned a couple of things that you learned about new in 3DX, right? It sounds like they're pushing the boundaries like they always do, and it's nice for Dassault to bring that out at CO, talking about AR and AI and maybe other acronyms. But it sounds like there's a lot they're doing with the platform. And in terms of AI, those were cool use cases you guys brought up, right? Kip, that one about predictive mating, that kind of thing. That's really cool. That's a tangible, like you could see how that's going to benefit people. And the Simulia one too, Mike, about just speeding up cycles. The use case thing that you guys brought up is pretty interesting. I imagine a lot of customers should be interested in that idea of collaboration on-prem to on-cloud. So that's a great one that they brought out to talk to everybody about and explain. And then it's good to hear that the organization's doing well. Obviously, like you said, Mike, always still need volunteers at CO. So anybody who's listening who might be interested, do reach out. It's not hard. It's not a big thing. But sounds like it was a good event. I wish I could have been there. But yeah, that's what I heard. Did I miss anything in terms of big stuff we should tell the audience about that maybe they should check out after the event or they should make sure they're thinking about for next year?
The only thing I can think of is that they're talking about moving the event to later in the year, like August or September.
That'd be
and I heard change. They were potentially going to be at Reno again next year. So
I would like that
venue. Yeah, it was an easy venue. And if you like to gamble, yeah, there's plenty of that there. All right, with that, I want to thank you, Kip, and thank you, Mike, for joining us today. This was a great conversation. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And thanks to our audience for joining and listening in for our conversation about CO. If you have any questions or would like to share some of your experiences around CO, if you were there, we'd love to hear from you too, see if we missed anything. If you like this conversation, please give it a like. We'd appreciate that. And if you have any questions about volunteering with CO, I'm sure Mike Craffey at Razorleaf would be happy to speak with you about that as well. We can always get you in touch with Mike. So with that, everybody, have a great afternoon or a great day from wherever you are, and stay sharp.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for being here and listening to this episode of Stay Sharp with Razorleaf. If you like this podcast, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform or on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, just leave us a comment on this post or send us an email to podcast@razorleaf.com. Until next time, stay sharp.